And we've come to the end of the book of Joshua. Yay! Listen, I know I keep saying it at the end of every chapter, but for real, I'm loving this progress, and it's not taking me as much effort as it probably used to for me to read my Bible. I don't know if you're having the same experience. Before, it used to be like, oh, felt like a chore and something I would always like postpone till I, have to do it, or sometimes I skip altogether. But now I'm really enjoying like following this flow. So I think maybe chronologically was, the best idea, following the Bible. Anyway, we've come to the end of the book of Joshua, but obviously we're starting from chapter 22 today, where the Israelites had all settled into the land that Moses, the land that God had promised, that Joshua had allotted. And then after obviously settling it, Joshua then called the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Remember that they were the Transjordanian tribe and they lived across, but they followed them into that conquest to take the promised land as promised. So now, the conquest is more or less over. So Joshua calls them, blesses them, and sent them to take their own land east of the Jordan. And one thing that came out to me is what they actually left very rich, because they had all the plunder from all the war. So yeah, they went back loaded. And as they left, they built an altar by the Jordan River, which divided them from the rest of Israel. Now, they built it as a witness for the future generation, but obviously it was misconstrued, because they did that because they didn't ever want to be separated from the rest of Israel. I think that, them leaving, it probably may have dawned onto them that, because we're separated from them, maybe our future generation may feel like we're not part of Israel. So they built that altar. But the Israelites misunderstood the altar, thinking that they had regressed into idol worship and were ready to go to war against them. So the Israelites were like, no. Remember, they're a covenant community, and they've seen how one man's sin, aka Achan, back then caused the whole, community to fail. So they were like, nah, if you guys are trying to be renegades, we're going to come out and kill you. But thank God for the command that he had regarding conflict resolution. Remember, he had told them back when they were in the wilderness, when he was still building them up as a civil society, that if there was an issue, have the elders go and talk to the elders. So they got the elders who went, to the tribe of Manasseh and Reubenites and the Gadites to find out what was happening. And they found out the truth behind the altar, and the crisis was averted. The Israelites had rest for a long time from their enemies, and an old Joshua called together the elders to give a farewell address before he died. He urged them to be courageous and faithful to God, and to do this so that they could maintain their blessings. As Joshua recounts the history of the Israelites from Terah, as Terah was Abraham's father, to Abraham and beyond, I couldn't help but marvel at God's power and his might. He kept his promises from generation to generation. This is like almost, I don't know, to how many hundreds of years after. Indeed, the Israelites were living in the lands and the cities they didn't labor for. Remember back then, you would live in lands that you didn't labor for, blah, blah, blah. Now they were living in lands they didn't labor for, living in houses that they didn't build, and eating from vineyards and olive trees that they didn't plant. He made a covenant with them at Shechem, the place from before. Do you remember Shechem from before, with the whole Tamar, saga? I'm sure Simeon doesn't quite like this place very much, where Jacob had, and then remember that Jacob had bought a burial plot from Hamor way before then, and so all this while the Israelites had Joseph's bones. So Joseph's bones were carried from Egypt and buried there. And guess what? That land was in the land of Joseph. As if you see how God just does things, like he knows what he's doing. So the allotment fell to Joseph, and now Joseph's bones are resting in his own land. How amazing is that? Joshua died at the age of 110. He was an effective leader, and the people served the Lord under him. And the leaders that he trained also served the Lord, and in that time, we also hear that Eleazar, the son or grandson of Aaron, died also, and he's buried there as well. Now here's my hashtag getting to know God lesson. God's faithfulness is unparalleled. The Israelites are living in the promise that he made to Abraham so many years ago. God's word never fails. God does not fail. All the words that he speaks comes to pass. And these are the words that he has spoken here in the Bible, and the words that he speaks in our hearts, and the words that he speaks through his prophet. God is the same. He doesn't change. I love the book of Joshua, and I realize now that I probably skipped it all these years because there were so many things that I learned that I didn't know before. And I hope you had the same experience. And tomorrow we'll move on to the book of Judges. Reader alert, Judges is very bloody, so come prepared. See you tomorrow. Bye.